These videos involve my supervisor from graduate school, Dr. Mike Telch. He's the director of the Anxiety Disorders Clinic at the University of Texas at Austin. He was my therapy supervisor for the first couple of years at graduate school, and then he was on my dissertation committee for my PhD. Dr. Telch is an expert on anxiety disorders, including panic disorder and specific phobias. He made a series of videos with National Geographic about his work with real clients. So in this series of videos, we'll see a client, Brianna, who has a specific phobia called claustrophobia, and that is a fear of enclosed or tight spaces. And one of Brianna's specific concerns is that she will suffocate if she's in a small space. So this fear has really impacted Brianna in a lot of ways, including that she can't go to this popular place in Texas where she lives called the Riverwalk. I've been to the Riverwalk several times, and it's a really fun place to hang out. There's lots of restaurants and lots of other things to do, so people really like to go there. But Brianna feels uncomfortable there. She thinks that there's too many people around. It makes her feel very claustrophobic. The walkways are a bit small, but most people aren't afraid when they're there. So Brianna does feel afraid, and she avoids going even though she wants to be able to go. Brianna engages in exposure therapy with Dr. Telch, which is a behavioral therapy approach. Typically, her behavior is to avoid, but in therapy, she's going to be changing her behavior and she won't be avoiding closed spaces or small spaces anymore. As a result, her thoughts about small spaces will change and her emotion of fear will decrease. So here you can see the cognitive behavioral model, and you can see that there are three components: emotions, behaviors, and thoughts, and those are mapped out onto a triangle. And they're all very much connected. And the suggestion with the cognitive behavioral model is that all three components exist in any situation. So the situation for Brianna is that she's at the San Antonio Riverwalk with a lot of people around. And in that situation, before therapy, on the left side, Brianna experiences fear. So I'll just put that over here. And related to that fear, she experiences the behavior of avoidance. So we'll place that over here. And as you can imagine, her thinking patterns, if she's experiencing fear and avoidance, are along the lines of, this is dangerous, I'm going to suffocate, I'm going to die, I need to get out of here. And you can imagine, if someone had those thoughts and they truly believed them, which Brianna did before therapy, it makes sense that they would experience a high degree of fear and that they would typically try and avoid the situation. So we'll come back to this slide in a few moments after we watch Brianna go through therapy. And we'll look on the right side and see how these three components have changed. The exposure therapy includes several steps. First, the therapist and the client need to make a fear hierarchy, and this is sometimes referred to as a stimulus hierarchy. So the fear hierarchy or stimulus hierarchy is a list that the client and the therapist make together, and it includes a list of perhaps 10 to 20 things or situations that the person fears. And those things or situations are rank ordered from the least scary to the most scary. So for example, someone with claustrophobia may say, being in a classroom is kind of scary for me, but it's more towards the bottom of my list. It doesn't cause a lot of fear. So they might rank it at about 25 out of 100. And then they'd come up with several other examples, like being in an elevator. And that might cause a fear level of, say, 60 out of 100. And being in a crowd might cause a fear of 70. And being in a small box might cause a fear level that's quite high at 90. And being in a dark cave might cause a fear level of 95. So you get the idea. So Brianna had several steps on her hierarchy, and we'll see just a couple of them, including being in a small box, being in a cave, and, this is specific to Brianna, being at the San Antonio Riverwalk. You can see a picture of the San Antonio Riverwalk here. The ones that we watch in the video, the exposures that we see in the video, are the more dramatic steps, and that of course makes for a more interesting National Geographic video. But I want you to keep in mind that this isn't what all of CBT looks like. This is just one example of CBT for a phobia. But it's a good example because it does show some of the major parts of CBT. It shows the behavioral change and the change in thinking, or the cognitive change. In this first video, we'll meet Dr. Telch and Brianna, and Dr. Telch will briefly talk about the specific phobia and the treatment.
Brianna will be treated by Dr. Michael Telch. He's a clinical psychologist and a professor at the University of Texas. And he knows a thing or two about what phobias can do and where they can come from.
It's too simplistic to just say that a phobia is just biologically determined right from birth. You're not born with heart disease, but high cholesterol is a risk factor for heart disease. And it may be that certain physiological differences, how sensitive your alarm system is, may increase your risk of developing a phobia if other conditions are present.
Dr. Telch plans to put Brianna into the kinds of situations that cause her the most distress. He's come up with a number of scenarios designed to make her confront the darkest parts of her fear.
Dr. Telch said that he was going to put us into this coffin-like thing.
Over here is the training chamber that we're going to be using for our second and third sessions.
I've had some nightmares about being trapped.
It's a very tight box.
I'm sure other people have had dreams about being buried.
We're going to use it to activate her fear of being, of having difficulty breathing.
That sounds very weird.
We'll actually use the same chamber to try to activate her fear of entrapment.
He asked us how we would feel if he closed the top.
Being in the box without being able to get out.
And that makes me very, very nervous and anxious just thinking about.
It really is pretty tight in here.
They say that it's 100% effective, so I think I'm going to take their word for it. But I don't see how exposing me to really harsh conditions like being in a closed coffin is going to help, but I guess I'll trust them right now until something bad happens.
Have a seat in that green chair.
It may seem that Dr. Telch's techniques are deliberately meant to torment Brianna, but looks can be deceiving.
Okay. What differs between torture here is that it's done in a very collaborative way, where the patient understands that activating her fear is one of the most powerful ways of overcoming it, and that all of the steps we do will be, we're not going to do any tricking her. We'll never put her in a situation either against her will or something that she's not knowing we're going to do in advance. And we'll go as slow or as fast as the treatment tells us to go. In other words, she'll be an active participant all along the way. And because of that collaboration, usually that differs in torture. So when you're tortured, your torturer doesn't give you feedback and allow you to have input into how they... I would consider her completely recovered if she looks back at her claustrophobia as a past memory. I remember the time when I couldn't do this or this or this, or I remember the time when if I had to do it, I had to do it with such extreme distress and fear, and that it's just a past memory.
Next, we're going to see Brianna doing an actual exposure, where she changes her avoidance behavior and she learns cognitively that being in a small space is really okay.
I'm going to torture you.
Now that she's completed the first phase of her therapy, Brianna has advanced to the next level, the coffin. This may be the ultimate claustrophobic scenario. While she's inside, a tiny camera will let Dr. Telch and his team monitor how Brianna is doing. And just to make it more challenging, her therapist will sit on the lid. There will be no way for Brianna to escape, and she'll know it.
Here's the courage part. You're what we call relinquishing control. So you're basically saying, okay, I know to really help me with my feelings of being trapped, I have to activate that. And the only way to activate it is for us to make it realistic. And the only way to make it realistic is for us to agree ahead of time, no matter how loud you scream, no matter how loud you knock, that for that 2-minute period, you're going to stay in there.
Okay.
But you're agreeing to that, right? All right. So I don't want you to be upset with me if you ask me to get out and I say, sorry. Okay?
Okay.
All right. start the stopwatch as soon as the lid closes. Okay, the 2 minutes starts now. I'm definitely on top, and I'm heavy enough that you're not going to be able to get out. Give me 30-second times. Okay, fear level, Brianna?
85.
85. Okay, and your sense of danger on a 0 to 100?
85.
Okay. I appreciate your courage. I know this is a hard thing to do. Okay, fear level again?
85.
Okay. And sense of danger?
85.
And what is that? What's the sense of danger right now?
That if I tried to get out, I couldn't.
Uh-huh. And why is that dangerous?
Because I'd be in here forever.